Hello, I am Reasonable Rex, the T-Rex you can trust. And hey, guess what? Zootopia 2 finally came out. Now, if you watched my video on Zootopia Plus, you'll know that I went to see the original Zootopia 2 times in theater. If this is any early indication of how I feel about Zootopia 2, I'll probably go watch it a second time. In fact, I would say I most certainly will, and there might even be a third time in the future. We'll see how things work out. Now, this is going to be my very short, non-spoiler review. Just a quick where the movie is and if it's worth watching. I do plan to do a larger video on Zootopia 2, going more into depth of the meat of the movie, what it's saying, what it's setting up, characters, everything like that. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe before we start because that helps me know what you want to see more of. And it helps me dedicate more time to making videos. I am going to be gone for the first week of December because I am going to visit my girlfriend's family, so there will be a little bit of delay on content, but I promise you I'll get that Zootopia 2 in-depth review out as quick as I can. With all that said, let's go ahead and get started. Now, Zootopia 2 is the exact same runtime as the original Zootopia. That being said, the movie goes by much quicker, and I feel that has to do with the first movie needing to set up both the premise of what the movie's about, as well as the setting and the characters. Going into 2, we know who Nick is, we know who Judy is, we understand what Zootopia is about, we get it. The movie does give a little bit of a flashback at the opening of the movie in order to set the scene in case it's been a while since you saw the first movie and you can get a reminder of the ending. It really feels like in this movie they took all the complaints or all the issues that some people had with the original movie and addressed them. The first movie had a very good message of, don't fall to stereotypes, don't fall to racism, but it was very heavy-handed and it was near constant. It felt like every conversation someone was saying racism is bad. And it's like, well, yes, it is bad, but why? And then they would just go, well, racism bad. And you're like, okay, thank you, movie. And this movie, it's definitely the backdrop with a more focus on demonization instead of just stereotypes and racism, but it's not brought up every single conversation, and the characters converse like normal characters having a conversation about these topics, which is very nice. This movie also addressed why we didn't see anything outside of mammals in Zootopia. I remember there being a bit of a running joke that Zootopia came out, and while it was considered by many to be the better movie, Sing came out, and in Sing, everything was alive and sentient, which really confused a lot of people because it's like, oh man, what are they eating in order to have, the jellyfish are alive, man. What are the sea turtles walking around eating? Well, in this movie, they address both reptiles and some of the more amphibious races like sea lions, seals, stuff like that. Also, this movie has a very big focus on the partnership of Nick and Judy. In the first movie, they worked really well together. It was this fantastic story about two characters that have different priorities from different backgrounds, overcoming their differences to work together and save the city. Well, this movie, they have the problem of everyone saying, hey, yeah, you did save the city, but that doesn't immediately make you the best police/detectives that we have. In fact, we feel like you need to strengthen your partnership if this is going to work, which is a very fair plot point. Although they got along very well in the first movie, things were going quick, She sort of roped Nick into everything, and then they grew to like each other over time. This movie tackles their different personalities and their different priorities while they're both trying to strengthen their partnership. The same way that Zootopia 1's messaging felt very heavy-handed and sort of sprinkled with the slightest seasoning of nuance, their character moment in the first movie was weak and then strong. Their conflict being weak, where Nick goes, eat you, and she goes for her fox spray, and it felt hammy, it felt like a kid's movie. And I like it when kids' movies treat their audience like they can understand everything. It felt poorly written, and it was just there to force them to break up and separate their friendship. However, them coming back together felt very natural as a very sweet moment. In this new movie, they have another falling out, and it is well written, it is led up to perfectly, and the outcome of their falling out affects the entire third act of the movie. Lastly, the first movie got a big mark against it for its twist villain, because Bellwether's a fun character in the second movie. She's in a few scenes, but her villain out of nowhere arc surprised us. It didn't feel set up, it didn't make much sense, it was just there. It was sort of, surprise, I'm evil. You didn't see it coming, so that makes it a good twist villain, right? In this movie, they decided to not do that and just say, hey, here's your set up villain. And then the villain stories take a couple of twists and turns, and by the end, you're actually surprised what happened with them, why they are the way they are. And it's more well written. There really was no villain in the first movie up until Bellwether makes her turn. They put out Bogo as an antagonist force to sort of force Judy to work towards solving this case, but he's not really a villain. And then after she solves the case, they sort of pin it on Mayor Lionheart for a while. We don't know why predator animals are going feral, it's just happening. Oh, surprise, it was because of this villain. Near the end of the first act of this second movie, you have established villains. You have people that mammals. You have mammals, characters that you know are the bad guys. You see what they're doing, you see what they're aiming for, giving a much better focus on the narrative. Zootopia 2 is great. If I was to give it an overall rating, I'd give it an 8.5 out of 10. It's not a movie that's going to burn away every other movie. In fact, it's going toe-to-toe with the second Wicked movie, and although I don't really keep up with the Wicked movie, I'm not a big musical fan, I'm assuming it's going to outperform it. And two are on equal footing. However, Zootopia 2 does a lot of things right, it does a lot of things better than the first movie, has me engaged, and has me hoping that a Zootopia plus season 2, or perhaps a new show, comes from this movie, and that we'll get a third movie relatively quickly. I will say that the directors took so long from Zootopia 1 to 2 because they worked on Encanto and they really wanted to flesh out the sequel, and the first Zootopia movie felt like a full package. It could go without ever getting a sequel and that would have been fine. There are moments in Zootopia 2 that feel like they could lead into other avenues, other media, more movies, more shows. So hopefully we'll get more Zootopia in the future, which would be fine by me. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. If you've seen the movie, let me know down below what you think, what you liked, what you disliked. If you haven't seen the movie, let me know, are you thinking about going to see it? I've moved my YouTube over to focusing more on movies, animations, shows, stuff like that, but I still do gaming over at twitch.tv/reasonable_rex, where you can find me every day except Wednesday and Thursday, 4 p.m. EST, streaming video games. I'm doing Elden Ring, I'm doing retro games I wanted to play as a kid, getting a chance to finally go play them. I play with friends, I do all sorts of things. Thank you so much, and until next time, bye!